Okay, here's another short satsang for you guys. Never know what's going to come up in these talks. And the sitting part is such a beautiful part of being able to do this together. One of the most beautiful, deepest forms of connections I think possible. So I like to do the sitting beforehand. I actually do a lot of sitting or meditation, whatever you want to call it, on my own all the time. And okay, so we'll do that. It's like crazy windy today. Most people that click on these types of videos have either had a non-dual recognition or they're simply seeking for a better place than this. And so these messages are an attempt to either relax the system and resolve the conflict in the body, to find a like-minded community of people who understand them, because this isn't something that you share with the average person, the non-dual message, or simply maybe perhaps they clicked by accident. And there are a variety of ways that these satsangs can come up. Sometimes they can be extremely therapeutic, and other times they can simply just be very poetic in the way that which is the ground of being, is described. In most cases, the video is clicked on because something is wanted and there's an attempt to get something. This is typically a subconscious behavioral programming. It's the reason most people are hanging out online. And there's absolutely 100% nothing wrong with that. That's just simply what's happening. But in terms of the non-dual message, in terms of actually getting something, having something click so that enlightenment can appear, one of the best, most greatest reliefs, if this message is delivered correctly, is that nothing can be gotten here. You will not receive a thing, not a thing. And if nothing can be gotten, then perhaps maybe something can stop. And if something can stop, then maybe what is can be recognized as the substrate of all existence, as the unbroken state of beingness of all there is. And so this is just a whisper of a recognition of something that's always been here, something that's never left you, something that could never leave you, something that will never go away, something that's always here. So this message isn't going to get you anywhere, ever. None of these messages will. They can simply remind you of what's already here, which is this, which is what's happening. And so this non-dual message can deviate from the pointing to of what's happening, and it can start to express and describe that sense of separateness and the mechanism of the personal self or the me. So the me energy is time. It is the sense of I am someone, I have something to do, I have somewhere to be, and this is how I must get there. And if I don't get there, I will be a failure, I will be ashamed, I will be rejected, I will die. So it's a very intense role play that this mechanism that arises in all that is, in what's happening, plays out. And it also interplays within other senses of self, other individual senses of a me. And so this grandiose dynamic appears within the world of the me, within the personal story, where there's constantly a battle of running away from that which threatens the sense of me or that which validates the sense of me. And this can be observed very clearly. It's a very clean observation. So typically, easiest way to see it is just simply by watching the behaviors of the body, of where it avoids interactions or where it is the instigator of interactions. Usually if it's moving forward towards something, it's because it knows it's going to feel safe, secure, financially abundant, loved, accepted. If it's retracting or coming away or back from something, it usually means that it's going to feel humiliated, impoverished, trapped, worthless, and so forth. And so the world of the personal me, and also the entire self-help industry, is programmed around those two dynamics, helping the me avoid its negative sense of self and continually achieving this sense of you could even call it an enlightened ego, or the best version of the ego that's possible. So this non-dual message can describe the ground of being itself, which is where this dynamic is arising from, and also the substance of which it is composed of, or it can simply describe the dysfunctional, and I say dysfunctional because the me typically comes with a sense of like lack or suffering, or a feeling that something's wrong or something's not enough. So in non-dualism, that could also be described. And so speakers will speak either about the ground of being itself, or they will describe the dynamic of the personal self within the ground of being in which it is arising. What I do here is I have no freaking clue. I don't know. I have no idea what's coming out of my mouth or what is being described, except that which is being described. So, and the spiritual dilemma comes into play very often in these non-dual meetings as well, because most people, most aspirants that come to these meetings have spent 20, 30, 40, sometimes even 50 or more years in spiritual seeking, in some sort of spiritual practice. This could be yoga, meditation, mantra, religion, whatever that may be. So often the mind is already pre-programmed and predisposed to perceive and receive the non-dual message a certain way. And so then the separate self, or the me, that actually is not what is listening to this message. There's something more profound that's listening to the frequency of these messages, or the resonance, if you will. There's something deeper here, a recognition of something that already knows what's being spoken about, that's listening. But the mind comes up on top of that, and it hijacks the pointing to of the unlimited, unbound freedom, or aliveness, or ground of being. It hijacks that, and it takes that into its spiritual training, and it attempts to apply non-duality in the same way that it's been trained to apply spirituality. So it puts awakening as this grandiose Godhead, and it puts itself as the aspirant needing to go through certain levels or steps of recognition, states of being, in order to reach this ascended, enlightened state. That inevitably fails. It's a very exhausting path. It's a path that hopefully ultimately leads to the stopping or the exhaustion of that seeking energy, because now it's given up seeking in the material world, right? It's no longer looking for fulfillment in money, in relationships, in travel, in whatever. Now it has this enlightened ego aspect of itself, the part of itself that's looking for liberation, right? And that's a very worthy cause. It makes the me feel great about itself, because it feels like it has an honorable mission or a purpose to its life. It's all about purpose. Its whole thing is the illusion of purpose, the idea that it's going to get somewhere. So it takes this non-dual message, creates enlightenment as the goal out of it, and continues in another cycle of seeking. Within that cycle, if the non-dual message is heard correctly, it gets very confused, very lost, potentially very depressed, and very stuck. Okay? Now, today's video, what I want to do is describe that specific level, or not even level, but that potentiality of whether that's resulting for you is listening to the non-dual message, getting frustrated, feeling like you're not getting anywhere, and just coming back to these videos to get your fix, right? Happens. That's the best freaking place to be, is the recognition of that happening, because then ultimately this can be seen as the crutch that it is. And it's not you doing this. It's not you taking these messages and making them a crutch. It's just simply what the mind and what the system's trained to do. And so as this is heard, hopefully what can happen is a relaxation, or a letting go of the grasping of the non-dual message, and then also a return to one's life. What's happening? So many times the non-dual message of no self is used to run away and to escape and avoid what's happening, because most times what's happening is extraordinarily uncomfortable and unpleasant. It's the reason actually any seeking's happening, is because what is very uncomfortable. And so this is a call into that discomfort. It's a call into that space that's continually being avoided. That boredom, that feeling of stuckness, that feeling of depression, that feeling of emptiness, purposelessness, meaninglessness. Non-duality, in a way, forces the coming face to face with that. Okay? And then what can happen is that non-dual message can reinforce what's being seen, this feeling of worthlessness, or again, discontentment. It can reinforce that. But without the coming back to that, or to what's there, which is what's constantly being avoided, then no true recognition or no true liberation can happen. And so when I say the word liberation, your mind believes that there's a better place than this, a better place than the discomfort. But what I'm talking about is the dissolution of the barrier between your discomfort and what's happening. What I'm talking about is the erasure of my discomfort. The ending of this discomfort belongs to me. The stopping of the belief that you are the cause of your discomfort. And so that is the call of the non-dual message. And that's not calling you to disassociate with anything. It's not calling you to reject anything. It's not calling you to do anything. It's simply pointing to you a recognition of what's already here, which is a freedom. Freedom means this belongs to no thing and no one. Your discomfort is not yours. It's just simply what's arising and what's appearing. And if it were yours, it would always be here, wouldn't it? You'd always be uncomfortable. But that's not the case, is it? Discomfort comes and goes. It's lost and then it's found again. This is pointing to what does not come and go, what does not shift, what does not leave you, does not change you. And this is an essential recognition because it's the recognition and the meeting of truth itself, not as something greater than what you are or some grandiose idea of the meaning of life. To return to the simple, ordinary being without all the running, all the fighting, all the fear and all the lies. Because that's all coming from that sense of a me that believes it has to hold the burden of life and it has to be responsible for making things come and go. And so as this message, as the pointing of this message is recognized, then everything's allowed to happen. And at first that could be extremely uncomfortable when everything's allowed to happen because you've been trained for so many years to prevent what's happening from happening, right? And so it can feel almost counterintuitive to suddenly stop and to throw in the towel on those shenanigans. That could be very uncomfortable. But what's being spoken about abides. It doesn't shift. It doesn't move. It's the only one dependable thing there is what's happening. And so a continual return to that is inevitable, except you've never left. It's always been here. What's happening has always been what's happening. The only difference is that you always thought it was happening to you, rather than it was simply just happening. So that was a lot of words. I would definitely chuck them all out if you can and let it be what it is. Okay? Nice to see everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Take good care.